And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan, and this is your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook on Sunday, August 31st, 2025. And starting with the state of the sea ice, there's still a little bit located along the Beaufort Sea coast, but not in any concentrated form. And the late summer melt-off continues. We're just a couple of weeks away from minimum ice extent, and relatively mild conditions are going to persist, at least here for the upcoming week through Labor Day and at least through midweek. No big changes to colder weather coming. And looking at the satellite image as of this mid-Sunday afternoon, ridge of high pressure allowing for quite a bit of sunshine over the Panhandle and much warmer temperatures coming up here. A heat advisory on Tuesday, northern and southern portions of the Panhandle could see temperatures 75 to 80 degrees, but we are going to watch this plume of moisture, this atmospheric river coming up out of the Pacific across the Alaska Peninsula in through Bristol, Kuskokwim Bays. This is going to funnel more moisture into the southwest and western interior. So another 1 to 3 inches of rainfall over now through, say, early Wednesday morning, pretty likely there. And then along areas of the west coast, there's going to be, with the low taking a track Tuesday up toward the Bering Strait and Seward Peninsula, it's going to send some breezier conditions in along the YK Delta in the Kuskokwim Bay on Tuesday. So active weather with periods of rain or rain showers likely along much of the west coast coming up here the next few days. So weather map on Monday afternoon, Labor Day. Here's that low. It's filling out in the central Bering. The front pushes inland and slowly eastward. This ridge of high pressure, stubborn, it's a pretty stationary feature in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. That's what's going to bring some pretty good weather, late summer weather along northeastern Gulf Coast, Panhandle up into the southeast mainland. But again, if you're in areas along Bristol Bay and up here through the Alaska Peninsula and eventually Kodiak Island, you're going to tap into some of this rain or rain showers, with additional moisture overspreading the entire southwest and western interior. And this little feature will pack a punch as it comes in shore early Tuesday. YK Delta's Nunavik Island could see some briefly stronger, gustier winds with rain showers as that feature moves through. By Tuesday afternoon, that feature will have rotated northeastward through Norton Sound and the western central regions of the coast. Meanwhile, we're waiting for yet another low that's going to take a track northward up right toward Bristol and Kuskokwim Bays for Wednesday. So this will bring additional rain and some breezy conditions. Meanwhile, Tuesday, a very warm one across the Panhandle. A number of areas will hit temperatures 75 to 80 degrees with lingering showers and areas of rain across the central western interior on Tuesday. So looking at the marine forecast for the Panhandle with that ridge of high pressure in place. South winds 10 knots, waves a foot or two Lynn Canal. North winds 10 knots, waves a foot or two Stevens Passage. And then northwest winds to 15 knots, waves 2 to 3 feet down here in Dixon Entrance. The outer coast, it's going to be a bit brisk. We'll have northwest winds 25 knots outside of Cross Sound off of Sitka and Craig, with waves 7 to maybe as high as 9 feet outside there of Dixon Entrance. And then more westerly winds to 20 knots with 4 5-foot waves around Cape Suckling. For Tuesday, still south winds 10 knots in Lynn Canal, waves a foot or two. Northwest winds 10 to 15 knots. Stevens Passage to down off of Ketchikan, Metlakatla with waves 2 to maybe 3 feet. And then the outer coast, strongest winds will be outside of Cross Sound, 25 knot northwesterly winds with waves maybe 6 to 7 feet extending down off of Sitka and Craig, and then still westerly winds 20 knots with waves 4 to 5 feet there at Cape Suckling. Rather light variable winds on Monday within Prince William Sound outside of Hinchinbrook Entrance and the east coast there of the Kenai Peninsula, with winds at 10 knots, variable, and waves only a couple of feet. Strongest winds will be lower Cook Inlet, southeast winds there to 25 knots from Kennedy Entrance up toward just outside of Kamishak Bay with waves 4 to 5 feet. Upper Cook Inlet, variable winds 15 knots, waves maybe running a foot or two there on Monday. And then for Tuesday, still variable winds within Prince William Sound and outside of Hinchinbrook Entrance, the eastern Kenai coast, and also Lower Cook Inlet, just variable winds at 10 knots and waves generally just a few feet tops. South winds of 15 knots through Middle and Upper Cook Inlet with waves of 2 to 3 feet. On Monday, Kodiak Island will see south winds 20 to 25 knots, waves maybe as much as 4 feet there within Shelikof Strait. Southeast winds, Bristol Bay, east of Chicknick to 25 knots, waves 5 to 7 feet, and those winds fall off to west-southwest 15-knot winds. Cold Bay False Pass with waves running 3, maybe as high as 4 or 5 feet there outside of False Pass. And then Tuesday, winds will be 15 knots from the south there at Kodiak Island. Easterly 10 knots, Bristol Bay, and then trailing out the Alaska Peninsula, those variable winds become northeasterly at 15 knots, either side there at Cold Bay and False Pass. Now on Labor Day, we are going to have some stronger winds and higher waves pass north of the central Aleutians associated with the low out in the central Bering. So generally the wind flow across most of the Aleutian chain on Monday is going to be southwesterly 15 to 20 knots over the eastern Aleutians, and then generally southwest winds central Aleutians to 20 knots, maybe upwards of 25 knots there northwest of Adak and east of Kiska, turning westerly to 20 knots then Kiska through Shemya. And for Monday, winds will come down a bit further, generally north-northwest winds around 20 knots over the eastern Aleutians, variable winds between Atka and Adak at 10 knots on Tuesday, and then winds turn back toward the south-southwest at 15 to 20 knots west of Adak through Kiska and Shemya. Winds Monday will be upwards of 30 knots from the south there on the Pribilovs at St. Paul and St. George with that little stronger low pressure wave wrapping around the main low. We'll have south winds of 20 to 25 knots up into Bristol and Kuskokwim Bays, and then along the lower Yukon coast, winds could be as high as 25 knots there, Hooper Bay up north of Imanik and up to Nome across Norton Sound with waves 4 to 5 feet. On Tuesday, winds will be southerly 15 knots into Bristol Bay, southwest winds there, the Pribilofs to 25 knots, waves 8 to 10 feet. But as that feature comes into Nunavik Island, and it is going to have winds, south-southwest winds 25 to 30 knots, turning westerly once that pulls inland during the day on Tuesday. And we can see south winds of 25 knots along the lower Yukon coast and the wider expanse of Norton Sound with waves 5 to as high as 7-8 feet off of the coast there. And then for the areas western Seward Peninsula, north side of St. Lawrence Island through the Bering Strait, look for southerly winds on Labor Day of 25 knots, waves 5-6 feet. South winds of 20 knots continue around the Cape Lisburn up through Utqiagvik to Prudhoe Bay, with waves generally running 4 feet or so. And then on Tuesday, winds will be southwesterly 15 to 20 knots along the Beaufort Sea coast, and then turning northwesterly there between Wainwright and Point Lay before northerly at Cape Lisburn, but still kind of a mixed bag of winds through the Bering Strait and southern lower Chukchi Sea. We're looking at south winds at 20 knots with waves running about 4 to 5 feet. And then maybe a little bit of an eastward turn on the west side of St. Lawrence Island on Tuesday. Look for easterly winds of 20 knots at Gamble with waves there of 4 to 5 feet.